This is a YouTube live that I recorded quite some months ago. Right? It's just about the time when Moana 2 was being released. I didn't get around to posting it, but with the help of some AI software, I've cut out silences, long pauses, and here is a webinar that you can enjoy. So as though you're watching it for the first time, if there's any questions or ideas that you may have as you watch this, feel free to comment them down beneath here and I'll reply you. I've also been getting a lot of Elon Musk comparisons in the comments, and as I watched the beginning of this video, I was like, now I can see where that's coming from.
Hey, good morning everyone. All right, so welcome to the Be Inspiration, Inspire at Random webinar. This is more like a masterclass, and like I said, I'm going to be putting in like a lot of stuff that I specifically wrote down for this session, and it was just so many ideas to share. And now that we've got so many more members onto this community, I decided that this is like the best time to share this information. So I've got a bunch of pages written out. And just before this, I also decided to make some of it into notes that you guys can possibly refer to as well. So at this point in time, I'm going to share a Google Doc over here. It's not very complete. It's just got the first bit of information. But let me know if this you to better follow some of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about. And I want to actually just throw the question to you. Like, have you ever done something with your non-dominant side and done it well? Have you ever like thrown a perfect kick into a punching bag or into a soccer ball? You may have been right-legged, dominant right side all the time, but for whatever reason, or you threw a perfect left hook when you're so used to doing a right hook or a left roundhouse, right? And your nose is like so blocked, and you went for a roller coaster ride, or you went to an event, or it could even be an event that you enjoy. Like it could be a concert, or it could be, a F1 race. And suddenly you forgot that you were ill. And at that point of time, it's like, oh, wasn't I supposed to be like having issues with my breathing? Wasn't my nose supposed to be like repeatedly getting these clogged? And then you realize that, okay, there are ways of explaining that scientifically. Like for example, it could be the adrenaline rush that we feel and the excitement that we have from these events that we like, that ultimately we forget about our condition. But then again, let's think about what if we were only symptomatically doing things in a certain way? What if we were only symptomatically ill, right? And by that same token, if we're only symptomatically ill, can we be symptomatically successful? Versus so far, we've already had the experience of being symptomatically ill. So to be symptomatically successful is kind of like what a lot of people in manifestation, they teach, which is the feeling of the wish fulfilled. If you can have it in your mind, you can have it in your hand. And likewise, if you can properly visualize and experience, see what you see, hear what you hear, you feel what you feel, and then that experience, that result can be yours. So this is the first bit of concept that I want to give you today. This is a very, very powerful concept. And for those of you watching this on a replay, you are most welcome to rewind and go through any concept that you're not sure about. Make sure you know exactly what it is. And if you don't understand certain things, you're most welcome to comment down beneath here as well. And at the end of this session, I will allocate time for Q&A. But unlike my previous sessions, today I'm just going to go full steam into it, because those of you who are here today, you already know who I am, right? Before we go further into this session, I'd like to do some gratitude. So take a few moments and think of what you are grateful for today or yesterday or in the last 24 hours. And there's some things that you're grateful for. And in my recent video, I made a video on YouTube, which you've probably already seen, which is that for a high frequency person, how even something of a low frequency can come across as something good for a high frequency person. What is the science of that? And what does that actually mean? Yesterday in Thailand, it was the former King Rama IX's birthday. And as a result, for Thailand, this is Father's Day. Yesterday, which was no school, I decided to take my kids to the cinema because they haven't been to the cinema for quite some time. That's also because a lot of the cinema shows, they kind of saw the trend that a lot of people are going online these days. So they're not so motivated to bring new movies into the cinema. But anyway, Moana 2 was showing. And when we were just about at the place, we're just like 3 to 4 minutes away by car. My car actually gave up. So that's my BMW X5. It's not in the garage right now. And at that point of time, when it gave up, I heard these noises. At first, I thought it was like drilling work or tractors that were probably outside doing road works or something. And then my kids were like, "Hey, Daddy, what's that sound?" And I realized that, crap, it's not outside, it's actually inside. So the car is outside. I pulled over, we smelled smoke. We all hurried out of the car. I threw open the bonnet and, well, I was just thinking at that point of time, like, what could this be? So I called for a tow truck. Lost no time at all because my kids had an arrangement with their friends to watch the movie. So I immediately took them there by taxi, and then I came back just in time to pass my key over to the tow truck person. And later that day, when I heard more about the car, I was told that it's the alternator or the starter system, one of those two things. So it's like, immediately my mind was like, okay, I was relaxed. I felt that this is not anything to do with the timing chain. So if it's not the timing chain, okay, that's good. It's a good news, because this car has been around for a few years. And although the power and everything is well maintained, is good, but timing chain, I've been warned that it's got a few thousand kilometers before replacement is due. And when I heard that, oh, it's the alternator or whatever, it's a good news. So anyone else could have possibly been very negative. Oh no, or as if my mom was in the same situation, she would be, your car is bad, your car is out of shape. What about the kids? That's very miserable for them to not be able to commute by car. So all these are like very different ways of looking at the situation. But for me, I was like, great, I'm thankful and glad that it's just the alternator. And then this morning, it's like, I'm glad that I have an electric bicycle that I can use. I'm thankful and glad that the school is so close to where my home is that I can send them by bicycle. I'm thankful and glad that the weather is so cool in the morning. And I just turned it out to you. This is the nice, pleasant morning right now. Unfortunately, I can't zoom because it's in webcam mode, but it's such a nice and cool morning today that, going out like 24 degrees Celsius, so pleasant. Sun wasn't even strong. I'm thankful and glad there were so few cars on the road, and that made the commuting by the electric bicycle so safe. I'm thankful and glad that I had a good night's sleep. I'm thankful and glad that I was able to spend some quality time with my kids over the past day. And I would like to make this a habit for you as well, watching this video. If you haven't already gone into a gratitude habit, do so today. This is something that even my youngest daughter, who was the latest one to start with this gratitude habit, she, after like 3 times, the first time she was struggling at one thing to be thankful about. But now, second time, third time, she's done this gratitude exercise. Just before bed, we have a prayer. And then she has had no problem in coming up with multiple things to be grateful for. And what a great frequency this puts us into today. So at this point of time, if you have already done so, off the top of your head, for the next 1 or 2 minutes, think of anything that you're grateful for today. It could be, all the green lights I experienced on the road. It could be how we hit a target at work today, or anything good, particularly that happened in your life that you just thought about. And maybe it's something that has been happening for some time, but you never really stopped to realize, all right? So let's acknowledge that. Let's give that some respect. Let's affirm that good thing that happened. Let's affirm our gratitude for something, and do so in the chat right now or in the comments if you're watching this on a replay. Just affirm that thing that you're grateful for. Thank you for this. Thank you for that. Just write it down in the chat. I'd love to hear and see your comments, whether it is on live or on the replay. All right. So why did we just do this gratitude exercise? Because I wanted to raise us into a frequency, and gratitude is one of the highest frequencies that any one of us can have. The various states of mind. And let's say if we're in negative, we're angry, we are stressed, we're on a low frequency. And low frequency thinking, low frequency behavior gets low frequency results, right? Poverty, stress, illness, disease, all these things are of the lower frequencies. But if we can raise ourselves to higher frequency, we start to be grateful, we see possibility instead of lack, right? When we make this switch from lack to positivity to gratitude, all right, we start seeing a lot of things, a lot of opportunity in our daily life, a lot of things that we can take advantage of for our benefit and the benefit of the people around us, right? So moving on to the next point, I want to talk about mind over matter. If the world is a simulation, then what is the software? There's a reason why I put in the trailer video for this webinar, like that software programming thing, okay? So today, like I promised, I'm going to help you to reprogram your mind. There's a couple of things I've aimed to do for today. So I'm going to show you like the finishing line theory that I've just noticed. And I'm also going to help share this whole stuff to you and basically to reprogram your mind to give you a greater sense of possibility, way to address your life. I want to show you a new way of thinking and to take a few seconds out of the Moana movie that I watched yesterday. There's this part where she got caught in this giant clam and she met up with this Indian or Sri Lankan looking person that was imprisoned by Nala, forgot her name. And she basically told Moana, there's always another way. As a wayfinder, you're never supposed to know the way, but you're supposed to find it somehow. And to find the way, there'll always be some other way. The way to find a way is to get lost. So there was a song they were saying, get lost, cut loose, like get lost and cut loose. So cut loose from your preconceived notions, get lost, by going in the wrong way. And this actually brings to mind something that I'll be going into in this session, which was advice. I'm going to share it now anyways. My table tennis coach for me and my kids, he said that as we are taking in new information, and we also have old information, and the new information and old information are currently battling it out. And this is manifested in our actions or inability to execute the right actions in our strokes. So we're trying to learn a new way of hitting the ball in table tennis to do it better. But because of the old information that pre-exists and the new information that we has, like we may think that we are doing in a certain way, but actually, as a matter of fact, our wrist could be in a totally wrong position or our standing position could be totally wrong. For the external person, it's easy to see. Why this happens is because as we hit that stroke, like our doubts that we're going to miss the ball, it's not going to land on the table, that prevents us from doing it in the way that we've just been taught. So instead, halfway through, we start to raise that wrist. We have a lower reach with the ping pong bat. And, we miss the ball. Or maybe we hit it, but way less hard than it can possibly be. Falling back onto the old, how are we ever going to discover anything new? So this song in Moana 2 is especially meaningful to me. Like get lost, cut loose. And when you do something new, something that's of a newer method, usually when you're taught something new, you don't immediately get convinced that it's better. Very often we try to, this is not better. Let's go back to the old. It's a very convenient thing to think, but have you actually given yourself time to do that? So I want you to think of a time that you've been taught a new skill or a new way of approaching a problem. It could be a different math equation or a math equation shortcut that helps you to solve a problem. This may have seemed to you a little bit more difficult the first time you tried it. Think of the time that you tried this new approach, it discouraged you, and you had some doubts. All right. Now, I want you to fast forward in that memory. You can close your eyes if it's helpful and safe for you to do so. Think of the time connected to that memory when you had solved that problem using the new approach. Of course, remember all the doubts that surrounded that experience. And finally, when you were able to address that problem, how did it work out for you? Wasn't it much easier in the end? And then you recognize that it was a better way. The people who loved and cared for you could be teachers, parents, peers, an older sibling, some pastoral care at school, or even a caring colleague at work. They cared for you. They wanted to give you a better solution. And it did work out in the end. In the beginning, it was uncomfortable. You can say metaphorically, they took you kicking and screaming into a new way of doing things. And eventually, after the initial kinks, which were just adjustment and probably you didn't do certain things right. So it wasn't a methods problem per se, but it was because you didn't apply certain things correctly. And as soon as you realize that, looking back on everything, it was a much better way. And you think to yourself that if I had the opportunity of doing this again, it would be much faster than this. I wouldn't take half as long as I did today. Ultimately, this is a much better way. All right. This is something that I want you to understand. And this was something that is true for a lot of people, almost all people, in picking up a new skill. My table tennis coach correctly pointed out that kids don't have this problem as much as adults. Why kids are better learners than adults is because They are more present moment focus. They focus on the present moment. They focus on the experience. And my coach said specifically, unless there's something gravely wrong with what you're doing, just keep doing it. If it's gravely wrong, I will stop you and tell you about it. But if not, don't worry about anything. Just do the movement, because you're an adult, you're letting your rational mind come into play, and that's not something that's required for this, because what we're really trying to do right now is we're trying to train the motor skill. So I think this is very universally applicable to many things out there, and that's why I wanted to share this idea with you. I hope this helps, and let me know in the comments if this was a great thought. All right, so where are we now? Okay, mind over matter, the world is a simulation. What is the software? The software are these skills that we have, right? The next point, you see me writing down like ladder exercise, counting money exercise. Why did I write these down in particular? Let me finish that. Because our attention span these days is so short. Think of a time when a person that you know asks you, how are you doing? Or how are you? Without listening to your response. I have a few relatives like that. Sometimes it's not that they don't care, especially in the Asian culture, that a lot of people who ask you for the sake of asking without having any intention to listen for the answer. But there are also those who they care for you, but because their attention span is so darn short that they don't listen for the answer. All right. The reason why I want to talk about this is that a lot of people in this world right now, okay, in this simulation, the world is a simulation, and a lot of people have very bad software. Our best chance at creating our own reality is to be able to make use of the resources that we have in the best possible way. So what I mean by that, for instance, the problem with most people these days is that they have this software, and their software is designed to reboot every X number of minutes, X number of seconds. And attention span is so short that it's not able to allow you to learn any new skills or experiences, or even to think for long enough to be able to change and be a pilot of your own life. Isn't that quite disturbing? I choose to believe that the two recent occasions that the TikTok office in Singapore, it's called ByteDance, right? They had food poisoning. Maybe it's intentional sabotage, because TikTok, in my opinion, it promotes brain rot across the minds of hundreds of million people around the world. Brain rot content, totally senseless, like instant gratification, people just looking for mental stimulation by just flicking the screen and looking at people doing stupid dances and, random activities that do not promote any brain activity. So like this gives your mind like a dopamine hit sometimes, right? But not as much as focus exercise would. Like focus, if you focus on hitting your goals and you are able to set goals and hit them. Like these are actually my goals that I've written down, activities. So I do have a video inside of my channel that's about like a morning exercise, a 5-minute morning wake up routine. I will link that into the replay that you can watch it as well. And that involves like some mirror work, some affirmation work, and some self-compliments. And also at the end of everything, writing down what are some of the inspired actions that come to mind, and for you to start with some of the things that present more risk to you, right? And as you get into the habit of pushing your limits on a daily basis, and you get a lot of joy and reward in that, and that's the real dopamine hit, way more so than, let's say, if you're watching a movie and you go like, oh, that was funny. You're like waiting for the next moment to get triggered for like small reaction. So I want to talk about the counting money exercise and the ladder exercise. And to take this a little bit further, I want to actually say ice baths, doing this during ice bath. This is for the second one, counting money. Okay, allow me to explain. So both these exercises will allow you to prolong your attention span. And in addition to this, there's something also called the leaf exercise. This is actually more relevant than the ladder. Yeah, let me take that out. Not put the ladder exercise. The leaf exercise, the counting money exercise, and maybe if you think about leaf exercise, there's also something that you may relate to, and that's counting sheep. So we all possibly been told to count sheep as we were younger, as we had trouble sleeping. Just counting sheep. We're not just, imaging the number. itself, but we're also not just saying it, but we're actually imaging the sheep in our brain. So if we can image the sheep in our brain, why not we count something more productive, like how about money? All right. And these things, we want to see how far it can take us. So in terms of counting money, like for me, I like to do this when I'm doing face ice baths. I have this issue of like allergic rhinitis since childhood. I like doing ice baths. Ever since the first time I tried it, I was able to breathe very unobstructed. So any of you, if it's the cold season and you're having the sniffles, I highly encourage that you try face ice baths. Like get a bowl that's big enough for your face, like 1/3 of it ice, the rest of it water, and then you put your face in and hold it for 20, 30 seconds or more. And you can go as long as 1.5 minutes. The longest I've gone is probably close to 2 minutes. That's provided the water is not too cold and I've taken some deep breaths. But okay, so when I put my face in there, what I'm doing while I close my eyes, I'm multitasking actually, because I'm actually counting money. So this is a Thailand $1,000 note, right? The mistake that I made is that I didn't study this note carefully enough, which I should have. Right. And here's the interesting thing, because now as I look at this note, I see that on the other side, the Rama 10 and his dad, right, Rama 9. So I noticed the star over there. And if it's convenient for you, right now, I would love for you to also pull out a banknote in your wallet, the most worthy banknote that you have. All right. Study it carefully. So I want to share with you an interesting experience that I recently had. I was told that if you do this with enough concentration, you will definitely be able to count money for real. So in the next few days, I'd like for you to let me know if you do get to count money for real. So what I did was that when I was doing my face ice baths, I was counting in terms of the numbers of notes. And in the next few days, I actually received a huge stash of notes in my wallet. And that was because my mom wanted to reimburse me for some of the stuff that she wanted to buy at the supermarket. My parents came to visit and they went to the money changer before coming over. So they had a whole bunch of Thai currency. I received over 40, plus the notes I already had in my wallet. I then had about 40 over notes in, and it wasn't able to close. So I actually had to take some of the notes out, put it in my car instead. So why do I mention that? Because I didn't study the note carefully enough. This is a $1,000 note. When I was doing the ice bath for my face, I was counting thousands, or so I thought. But because I was not clear about what they looked like, what I eventually received, right? My mom handed me about 6,600 in Thai baht. So plus the money I already had in my wallet, it couldn't close. And that turned out to be about 40 over notes. If I had been more specific in my mind about the note itself, they could have very well been thousands from a different experience, not necessarily from my mom, but from a different incident. This is something I'd like for you to do. Be very specific and intentional. Just count the money. Because why? If you are counting the money, you are actually, number one, you're prolonging your attention span. And if you lose count, all right, if you lose count of the number of notes, restart. So see how many notes you can get up to in your face ice baths, or let's say before you sleep, count the notes. And as you count these notes, like you go 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000. Or maybe if you're in US dollars, you're like 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350, 400. Counting these notes, maybe after every 10 notes, imagine yourself setting them aside into a pile. Before long, you're going to have like 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. And then after a while, you see yourself stacking them up. And as you stack them up, this is where I actually lost track, right? But what we're doing here is that we're trying to prolong our attention span. There's another exercise that in manifestation is been taught. It's a leaf exercise. So as a leaf falls, imagine that you are in front of a lake and there are tall trees. You're seeing a very peaceful, pleasant pond, and the tree is falling like this, and it hits the water and causes some ripples. So after one leaf has fallen, another, each one coming down in the same way. Imagine that, all right? And see how many leaves you can get up to. So between leaf counting or money counting, I think money counting is a lot more fun. And within the next few days, I've experienced not only receiving actual cash, but it could also be a deposit into my bank account. Very, very bizarre. So do that, all right? The ability to image is the ability to program. I'm also part of another manifestation group, when the leaf exercise was being taught, a lot of people, I was surprised that they were struggling with even more than 6 leaves. For many of them, even counting like 10 leaves is considered an achievement. I did about 22 on my first try. So let me know again in the comments of this video, if you do actually try it out, how many leaves you got up to. You should be able to get up to quite a decent number. And whatever number you get up to is an indication of your attention span. And the reason why you lose count is because that software is just rebooted. All right. So you want to prolong how long you can stay on a one boot before getting rebooted. Your memory is getting rebooted. Your mind is getting rebooted. So let's try and achieve as much as we can in this current concentration. All right, next. For me, why do I ice bath? First of all, I said because of my allergy and because ice bath is something that promotes a natural antihistamine. That's one of the reasons why I do it. So for the scientific aspect, it's an antihistamine response. Number 2, it's vagus nerve stimulation. And from a mental point of view, it is also a break state. A break state is, let's say if you're currently feeling a certain way, it kind of short circuits you. It allows you to break out of a certain mentality and realize something new. For example, if you are currently having a blocked nose and you, after going into this ice situation, you get a bit of a fight or flight response. And afterward, when you feel that your nose is feeling very clear, and then you're like, how wonderful is it to be able to breathe unobstructed once again? So that's a break state, because if you've been previously feeling blocked nose, not being able to inhale your fullest, and suddenly being able to do so, wouldn't you feel much better? That's a break state. And break state is also a term in public speaking. You're breaking people out of the state. Let's say when you ice bath, you're breaking yourself out of the state that you have been in your boring day. So public speakers do this. They probably try to get people to imagine a beach or a relaxing space, something that's very different from they're currently at. Because if they had such a boring day, and if they can suddenly be allowed to feel happy, energized, more excited, right? This would break them out of their current state. This is also important because if people were already in a certain way of thinking, and if they are unable to get out of a certain mode, like maybe they've been like a robot all day, like doing data entry all day, or they've just been dealing with negative people all day, even though they have voluntarily signed up for a workshop, they may not be able to receive what the workshop has to offer them, because if they go there with that mindset, I'm going to block myself from all this negativity, I'm going to just, data entry, I'm going to shield my mind from all these morons around me. Even when you've now gone into a better environment, you're not going to be able to receive anything. And this is the reason why public speakers have to do something called a break state. And you can actually break state when you do a facial ice bath. All right, so let's go into us today versus us before, without trying to label what we are right now and to recognize how we are right now. I'll make this comparison with our house pets. Of course, there are cats in the wild, the strays, and the cats in the forest, the dogs that are strays, and of course, our pet dogs at home. So our house pets, they've essentially forgotten how to hunt, how to get their own food. Whereas the wolves in the forest, in a pack, they can even deal significant damage to a lion or a tiger. When we compare this to our human ancestry, in the primitive days, the cavemen, they hunted for their food and they would drag their kill on their backs back to the cave. And the conquerors, on the other hand, they were always constantly waging war. The warriors were fighting. These days, if we compare, what are our main daily activities? Do we hunt? No, we don't. Most of us receive income from something, from some activity, from work that we do, or some people out there are still receiving government handouts, and with that, they purchase their food. And because we don't have to hunt, then people start to draw their attention to, you're either working or you're sick at home resting and getting sick leave paid. So in Asian parents, they often stop their kids and grandkids from going out to activities, sports. It's like, oh, you're coughing a little bit, you better stay home. How are you going to do this? You're not feeling well. They kind of tell you how to feel. But if you think back to prehistoric times, do you think these parents' relatives would tell you how to feel? You'd be like, no, I know you're not fully recovered. I really appreciate that you're risking life and limb defending this country. Go out there and do your thing. What a difference in attitude between then and now. Because back then, just encouraging people to go out there and forge for the family, the province, the city, the country, waging war, right? Versus now, people now are just largely pacifists. And if you're so passive, how are you going to achieve anything? Any new ground must be actively secured.
I didn't actually end up finishing this webinar because of technical difficulties. There were actually sections where it was like black screen. But if you're still at the end of this video and you're wondering what's next, where's the rest of it, and you're interested in me doing more of these long webinars just like this, let me know in the comments down below. Share this, like this video, and do subscribe. Bye for now.